Thank you for joining the 3M STEM Careers Question Time with Rising Stars in Science and Engineering. My name is Julie Owen from the science-based technology company 3M. At 3M, we apply science to develop thousands of products that improve lives all around the world, and we're passionate about encouraging the next generation of scientists and engineers who will be the innovators of tomorrow. And with that in mind, we're delighted to host this unique event for Year 9 school students to put their own personal questions about STEM careers to 5 exceptional female engineers. Firstly, a warm welcome to Mrs. O'Flynn and students from Soar Valley College, Ms. Isaac and students at the Jameah Girls Academy, Mrs. Skidmore and students from South Charnwood High School. Unfortunately, Mrs. Walkden and her students from Orchard Mead Academy are having internet problems today, so I'm going to ask the questions that their students have put forward. Similarly for the Lancaster Academy, who also wanted to take part today but can't be online with us this morning. So we are recording this event, so we will be able to share it with them afterwards. So I'd now like to introduce our panelists, if they could switch their webcams on. Thank you very much. So these are the Rising Stars in Science and Engineering. They received this special award for their career success and also for some of the inspiring work they do as role models for young people in their profession. So if I could ask you just to say hello and introduce yourselves, please. So firstly, Amber.
Hi, good morning. I'm really sorry, my voice is terrible today, but I'll struggle through. So my name's Amber O'Connor. I am an engineering program manager at Siemens Energy, and I specifically look at aeroderivative gas turbines.
If I can just welcome Katie, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Katie Burnell. I work at EMEA Consulting and I manage a team of 180 engineers across the Midlands region.
Thank you, Katie. And Rebecca?
Hi, I'm Rebecca Cocklin. I work for BP as an automotive engineer in their fuels test methods team.
Thank you, Rebecca. Unfortunately, Charisma, who's a senior project engineer for Transport for London, was due to be with us today, but she's not very well. So my colleague Sarah, who's technical manager at 3M, has agreed to stand in, and Sarah is also a rising star. So could you say hello, Sarah, please?
Hello, I'm Sarah. So yeah, as Julie said, I'm a technical manager. I'm actually an application engineering manager. So I manage a team of engineers, but I'm originally a scientist. I studied chemistry. So hopefully I can give you an interesting perspective. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Sarah. We have Hannah's sound issue sorted out, so she can say hello to us.
My name's Hannah Ratcliffe, and I'm a senior engineer at Jacobs, which is a consultancy, an engineering consultancy. And I predominantly work in the highway sector.
Thank you very much. So a very warm welcome to our Rising Stars. You kindly provided profiles about your education, qualifications and your career paths, which we shared with the schools a few weeks ago. And from the information, the students have come up with a wide range of interesting questions to put to you today. So for the format of the event, I'll ask the teachers individually to put forward a question on behalf of their students. And I'll act on behalf of the 2 schools that can't be online this morning. And then we'll repeat the cycle to cover as many different questions from each of the schools as time permits. And the event will close at 10:30. So if we could have the first question, please, from Mrs. Flynn at Soar Valley College.
Hello, we wanted to ask Amber, are you happy in your work?
Yeah, so I absolutely love my job. I do something different every single day, and I work with customers all around the world. So it means that, you know, no day is ever the same, and it's really exciting. I know that I get to make a difference. So yeah, I really like my job.
Thank you, Amber. And could we have a question from Miss Isaac from the Jameah Academy.
We've got a question here for Rebecca. What do you do at work? What does a typical day look like?
So similar to what Amber was saying, no 2 days are ever the same for me, which is one of the things I like the most about my job. It's a lot of problem solving. So working in the test methods team for BP, for fuels, I design tests, get tests run, and deal with the data to come up with some of the proof that we put into our advertisements. So people might have seen that we've done, a couple of years ago, there was a BP Fuels Ultimate advert that we help bust dirt, like 1,000 ravenous piranhas eating the dirt from your engine. So we actually have the data behind that, and we come up with the tests to prove that. So I will sometimes be looking at data, sometimes be creating tests, and a lot of the time speaking to people from all over the world. And occasionally I get to go and look at the testing, which is the fun bit.
Thank you, Rebecca. I have a question that I'd like to put to Amber as well. It's from the Orchard Mead Academy students, and they've asked, do you have to go to university to become an engineer? Are there alternative routes?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I actually started my career for an apprenticeship. So I left school at 16 and studied with my company and went to college and worked part-time. Well, worked full-time and went to college part-time. And that enabled me to gain the qualifications I needed to be an engineer without having to go direct through the route of college full-time and then on to do a degree. So there's loads of different options to get into engineering. You don't just need a degree.
Great, thank you, Amber. And could we ask Mrs. Skidmore from the South Charnwood High School to put forward a question, please?
So this is a question for Sarah. What inspired you to be an engineer?
I'll share a little bit about what inspired me to go into STEM, so science, technology, engineering and maths. So I started training as a ballet dancer, and it didn't work out. And then almost out of defiance, I changed my A levels to biology, chemistry and geography and maths at the last minute, which I wouldn't recommend the change at the last minute, but the subjects were brilliant. And then my chemistry teacher at the time, she said that she used to be a formulation chemist. So she basically used to work for a very well-known soft drink where you have black currants, and they say that 90% of Britain's black currants make it. You probably know which drink I'm talking about. And the cool thing about that was that the blackcurrant harvest is really different each year, but we as consumers expect the product to be exactly the same. So they needed scientists to tweak the formulation to make sure that they could have that consistency, and that's what inspired me to go into science and engineering. So I'm now an engineering manager, but my route into engineering was actually through science. So I'm kind of probably similar to Katie.
Thank you, Sarah. That's great. I have a question on behalf of the students at Lancaster Academy, and I'd like to ask Hannah, please. What are the pros and cons of working in a largely male-dominated profession?
So, no, that's a really great question. I would say when I first went to university, there was 10% of my university class were female. So we were very vastly outweighed. And then sort of moving into my job, there are so many initiatives now going forwards. A lot of companies are now very much on board. We're trying to sort of balance the scales, try and get male and female 50-50. And I've seen real sort of progress in the last few years with the gender pay gap, all these differences. And I have to admit, at Jacobs, there is a very, very good split of male and female. But it's just such an enjoyable career that I have to admit I don't day to day significantly notice it, and but things are definitely improving and improving in the right direction.
Right, thank you, Hannah. That's a really interesting response to hear from you. And if Miss Isaac from the Jameah Academy would like to ask another question, please.
We've got another question for Rebecca here. Is engineering for you even if you dislike maths or science? So students who dislike maths and science, is engineering a career for them?
So I definitely wouldn't write it off, because even if you don't like the pure maths and pure science, I think sometimes it's the application of these that make you actually enjoy them. Doing sort of math exercises just on a piece of paper can get boring, but when you're using it to decide whether a bridge is going to collapse or whether a vessel can take as much pressure as you want it to take, then it suddenly gets a lot more interesting. So I definitely wouldn't be put off by it, just if you don't like sitting down doing calculations.
Thank you, Rebecca. And I'll ask a question now from the Orchard Mead Academy students. This is a question to Hannah. How long did you study before becoming a qualified engineer?
How long did I study? So I was a little bit different probably to everyone on the call. I studied in the Scottish system. So at university, you do a 4-year undergraduate, and then I then went on to do a 1-year master's. And it was quite an interesting degree I did, because the first 2 years were general civil and so general engineering. So I did a little bit of mechanical, a bit of civil, a bit of electrical engineering, and then after 2 years I got to be specific and I chose civil engineering. So I decided to do a master's because I was told, and it is true, that when you come out of university and you want to become a chartered engineer, it is a slightly easier route to get chartered if you've done your master's at university. So that's essentially five years in total.
5 years, okay. And can you just, for the benefit of those of us less familiar with the profession, can you just explain to us what the chartership means?
Yes, so chartership it's a sort of additional qualification through an institution. So I'm chartered through the Institute of Civil Engineers, and it's a globally sort of recognised qualification, and you need to be able to demonstrate a level of sort of competency and ability in your profession. So I sat mine after 6 years working, so I managed to build up my skills and then demonstrated that. And it really it's a sort of a real peak in your career to get chartered. I'd say it's, you know, people take notice, and very much so you then it opens up a lot of opportunities to you as well. But like I said, it's globally recognised, which is great.
Great, thank you, Hannah. Could we ask Mrs. Gidmore, please, to put forward a question?
So this is a question for Amber. Did you face any discrimination being a female engineer?
So again, that's a great question. I think that engineering is an industry, like we've already discussed, where women are definitely not as visible because there's not as many. But I've found it more so when I've been traveling out to different customers around the world, that where they are not so advanced in terms of equal opportunities, and I've definitely experienced bias because of my gender, but also because of my age. I mean, because I started my career so young, is that I was going and controlling gas turbines at the age of 19 and running tests. And actually, when I was visiting some of these customers, one, being a woman was a struggle, but also two, my age. So there's definitely still issues in the industry, but overall in the UK, I'd say that it's quite good. And like Hannah said, we've seen a lot happen, especially in my 10-year career. You know, there's been so much change in the gender pay gap and companies targeting equal opportunities. So it's still felt, but things are getting better. So for the next generation, I see only improvements. So that's great.
Thank you, Amber. And well done for keeping up with your voice. Unfortunately, don't sound very well this morning, but we appreciate that answer. Could I put a question to Sarah, please, on behalf of the Lancaster Academy student? They'd like to know, do you have a role model?
Yeah, so We haven't got all day, but I've probably got hundreds, and some of those role models are mentors. Some of them are people, people like this that I kind of am associated with, but not directly connected with. So yeah, hundreds. And I think the key thing is that with a role model, you're never going to find somebody who's exactly like you. I guess the whole point is you're unique, and whatever skill set you've got, that is unique. But what you can do is you can find role models in different areas. So, as a manager, I've got some mentors who are managers and who have sort of walked that path. When I was an application engineer, I probably had a kind of different set of role models. So yes, definitely. If I had to cite an external example, there's a couple of people. I've done quite a lot of STEM outreach in science and technology outreach work, and so my role model is actually Maggie Aderin Pocock. You can Google her. She's an amazing space scientist. I'm actually more of a chemist. I'm less into the space stuff. Chemists like to kind of go into molecules and like in depth into things rather than the big expanse. But the reason I like her is because she's truly authentic. If you watch some of her talks, she really does kind of bring her whole self, and she's even done talks with her baby, and it's just brilliant because she really does put herself out there, and she's very honest. So she's my sort of hero role model who I've never met, but she's my celebrity role model.
Well, thank you. That's really interesting question answer there. Thanks very much, Sarah. Another question from the Soar Valley College students, Mrs. O'Flynn.
Hannah, what does an engineer do day to day?
Very, very different day to day. So from my perspective, I'm mostly office based now, but I've also had site based roles as well. So I'd say day to day, I'm doing quite a lot of design work, quite a lot of project management work. However, I get to go out to site quite a lot, which is really, really good because you then, being a designer, I get to then see how what I've been working on is being constructed. I get to have that kind of interaction and then see the final product, which then the public get to use. So it's very, very varied. But I like that kind of variation between office and site. It's great.
Thank you, Hannah. Could we have a question from Miss Isaac from Jameah Academy?
Got a question here for Katie. At school, how did you navigate not knowing what to do for your career? Did you feel the pressure, and how did you overcome this?
So at school, I never actually felt pressure, albeit my teachers always used to say, if you fully applied yourself, where do you think you could get to? And it was only at college, that I started applying myself. And I've never had pressure from anybody externally. It's just come from myself, if I'm honest, and always wanting to do more and to continually improve. And around navigating not knowing, it was just talking to my teachers or my lecturers at college to try to determine what that would look like. And until I, applied for the EMEA graduate scheme, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And until I guess maybe the last year or so, and considering I'm 10 years into my career now, I still haven't known. And I've kind of gone through a process of elimination, of trying various things, of working with the construction operational teams in our highways division, to working in business improvement, a bit in HR, and now to managing a large design team of engineers. It's just through a process of elimination of what haven't I liked about specific roles and what have I liked, and trying to put all the bits I like together to drive forward.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Katie. So I'll ask a question on behalf of the Orchard Mead Academy. I'll ask this question to Amber, I think. What GCSE subjects did you study at school, and what was your route after that?
Yeah, so I took all of your standard GCSEs, so your maths, English and science. I did my individual sciences. And then my chosen subjects that I went down was I did graphic design and arts because I was a little bit creative, and that's sort of the industry that I thought I was going to get into. I looked at maybe being an architect or a designer. which is why I chose those GCSEs. But actually, looking back, the skill set that I had, so the maths and the science and then sort of the creative side, really fits well into engineering. But at the time where I was choosing my GCSEs, engineering just wasn't even like in my mind. So it's worked out really well, but you don't necessarily have to have those design and creative GCSEs to go on to do a STEM career. And as long as you have your basic, some elements of maths, English and science, then you'll be able to follow any type of STEM career.
Thank you, Amber. Could we have another question from Mrs. Skidmore, please?
So this is a question for Rebecca, please. What is the hardest part about being an engineer?
The hardest part, that's a hard one. I think for me personally, it's probably the pressure I put on myself to always do everything perfectly first time and expect myself to know everything, when actually it doesn't matter where you are in your career. If you're a year in or 10 years in, you're always going to have to ask somebody for help because you can't know everything. And that's probably one of the best bits about engineering, is it's a collaboration of a lot of different point of views and a lot of different backgrounds and experiences, and everybody brings something new. So I think the hardest part for me, especially at the beginning of my career and starting at BP, is I came out of university and I was like, I should know everything and I should be able to do everything. And that's not the case, and it's never going to be. So
Thank you. So I'd like to ask another question on behalf of the Lancaster Academy students, please. This is an interesting question. I think the students would like to put this to Hannah. It's how much do you earn as an engineer? What are the average salaries and the opportunities for promotion?
I'll start with the sort of promotion side. I think the opportunities for promotion are endless, and you can go into sort of various different streams as well. So I work for a big company, big global company, but it's very, very dependent on whether you go in that direction or you can work for a much smaller, independent, privately owned company, that kind of thing. So, I mean, for example, I've worked for 6.5 years now, and during that time, I've already had 3 promotions. So you're never stagnant, always moving, and you get a huge amount of support. I've had a huge amount of support to grow in my career, and that's accelerated my promotion. I would say, like any career, the graduate, so starting off as a graduate salary, it's generally quite a good salary comparable to other sort of sectors, I would say. And as you sort of progress through your career, you see that increase as well. And if I'm being honest, I've always been very satisfied with what I've been paid. So I think that's probably the best I can answer.
Thank you, Hannah. And could we ask Mrs. O'Flynn if she'd like to put forward another question on behalf of her students, please?
Can we ask Amber what sort of things she does day to day in her work?
Yeah, so I manage a really small team of 5 engineers, but they're located all around the world. So, my day consists of making sure that they've got the priorities for the work that they're doing. I have meetings with customers to understand their requirements, and then I speak to internal customers like project managers and the technical teams to understand what it is that we're doing. So my day-to-day activity is quite diverse, and then I'm really involved in cultural work within Siemens Energy, so I dedicate a little bit of my time to pushing that as well. So like I said earlier, every day is completely different, but that's a general flavour of what it is that I do.
Thank you, Amber. Could we have the next question, please, from Miss Isaac from the Jameah Academy?
Got a question here for Sarah. What is the hardest challenge that you have faced?
Yeah, so that's such a good question. I think probably the recurring challenge that I have, and I'm pretty sure the other panelists will identify with this, is the kind of imposter syndrome, as it's called. So that's where you kind of think, oh, okay, I've got this job, I've got this promotion, I've got this project, I've had this success. Somebody's going to find out like they got the wrong name. It shouldn't be for me. And I think almost everybody has it. Typically, it does, or certainly women are more open about it affecting them. So you know, as girls, I think we sometimes have you know, a challenge with confidence. So the time that I had it the most was I project managed 3M have an innovation centre, which is where we showcase our 50 different technologies, and my technical director invited me to project manage it. So I was project managing the design and build of this centre, having, to be honest, 0 project management qualifications. And I was like, why on earth? You know, we've got professional project managers, so why has he picked me? And the answer was he picked me because I was super passionate about 3M technology. And he told me that later on, but at the time I was like, oh. And I remember when I first got offered the job, I spent the weekend reading through project management books and going on the internet trying to do a quick course in that kind of project management. And it turns out, you know, we delivered it on time in full. It's had 12,000 visitors. So I was capable. I think it was Katie who mentioned it earlier about collaboration. There's no way I could have done it without collaborating, but I had enough people around me that did know what they were doing that I could work with, and I'm a fairly good communicator, so I was able to do that. So I would say the biggest challenge I've had throughout my career has been imposter syndrome, and it never goes away. Whenever I get a new job, I have a new dose of it. So it's just something to kind of work on. But I should also say it's never held me back, probably thanks to mentors and people who have kind of been there to say, yeah, you know, go for it. So I would pass the same advice on. If you're not sure, go for it.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. So I'd like to ask a question on behalf of the Orchard Mead Academy students. Who should they reach out to get information about their career and to find somebody who might inspire them to go into engineering? What would you recommend? Perhaps we could ask Rebecca.
So I got my idea of going into engineering through my hobbies. Luckily for me, my dad was also an engineer. My brother was studying to be an engineer. So it was fairly straightforward for me. But there's generally people at your school you can talk to, although I was told I should be an architect. So who knows? But I did a lot of research myself on the internet when I was looking at what kind of courses and what type of engineering I would go into. And there's a lot of stuff out there, and stuff like the Rising Stars, they do a lot of good work. Obviously, you can reach out to people like us. If you Google it, you're bound to find somebody. But yeah, really just I looked a lot on the internet to find out really what route was good for me, because it's a very personal thing.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. And there's another question from the Lancaster Academy. I'll put this question to Katie. Do you have other career dreams?
So I have just had a promotion, and similar to what Sarah said, if you get a new dose of imposter syndrome, I'm right in the thick of that at the minute. And you know, so my career dreams now is less about me, to be honest, that where I am at the moment and where I want to see, you know, my team go in the next year or so is win an award for their recognition for all of their hard work. We've gone on as a team, a real transformation phase of being a team that's really internally focused too. We've won a huge framework, and what that means is we're working with 35 local authorities across the Midlands to design for them. And in the past 6 months, where COVID should be the hardest time for everyone, we've just picked up the design for an iconic bridge in Nottingham, and then also to design an electric rapid transit system for Derby City. So we've got some real opportunity there. So for me, that, you know, I've won this award, which is fantastic and really great personally, but it's now I want to shift the focus and how does the team succeed and how do we drive that forward? Okay, thank you very much, Katie. Now we can go back to the Soar Valley College. Mrs. O'Flynn, if you have another question, please.
Hello, can I ask Hannah what was the best part of your day?
That's a tricky one. I think really, and it's difficult at the moment because of COVID and us all working from home. But really, the best part of my day is sort of getting into the office and having what we used to have was our sort of morning meetings, our morning get-togethers. So just a real sort of check-in to see how everyone is, their day's looking like, how they're feeling about their work, all of that kind of stuff. And it's, you know, you kind of with working from home, a lot of that sort of relationship, sort of face-to-face contact is really lost. And that, to be honest, that was always my sort of favorite part of the day, that kind of collection of everyone together, and you know, that sort of collaboration moving forward into the day. But I can only see things sort of going back to normal and improving hopefully in 2021. But it's, yeah, it's nice to sort of have that team, and you can really sort of reach out to them and lean on them as well.
Thank you, Hannah. Yes, I think myself and some of my colleagues at 3M have also felt a little isolated working from home for this length of time. So, right, can we put another question, please, from the students at Jameah Academy? Miss Isaac.
Yes, we've got a question here for Amber. It's what skill set have you gained from becoming an engineer and in your career?
So another great question. For me, one of the most important skills being an engineer, and it's probably the skills I have for loads of different careers, is communication. Especially when you work with people from all around the world, different cultures, communication is so important, and learning to adapt how you communicate effectively to make sure that you're being clear and also that you can understand them. So that's the most important thing for me. But also, you know, having those great team working skills and actually a little bit of drive and determination is so key, and especially in this industry, being women who are drastically outnumbered, I think having that drive, that extra little bit, is really important.
Thank you, Amber. I have a question from the Orchard Mead Academy. What types of jobs would you recommend if students are really interested in maths and science? Is engineering the way to go, or are there other opportunities? Perhaps if we could put that to Sarah.
Oh, that's a brilliant question, and there's probably such a huge range of answers. I've actually been surprised in science and engineering at how diverse the skill set is. So I think somebody mentioned it earlier. If you are, you know, there are certain jobs that do use more of the pure maths and science. There are other jobs that actually you need to. So my job, for example, I need to have a technical understanding. So my team, they deal with tapes and adhesives, so that's basically sticky stuff, and we're in the transportation team, so we work with customers about how to stick trains and planes and cars together. You'd be quite surprised, I think, at how many adhesives are used in those industries. So our job, obviously, we do need some chemistry, we need some engineering, we need some maths for sure, but I would say all of those things, just as important are communication, problem solving, being able to actually understand a problem quickly and then match it with the solution. I always feel like our job is a bit of a matchmaker. It's kind of like, okay, you've got some problems, you've got some solutions and some technologies, and you have to try and figure out which one is gonna give the best solution. And it's not always the absolute best, because it might be dependent on cost or time and those kind of things. So it's more about optimizing. So yeah, I guess to come back to the question, maths and science, if you're really interested in maths and science, engineering is a brilliant career. If you're just a little bit interested in maths and science, engineering is still a really good career, because there's all sorts of other things. I still use every day the stuff I learned in drama and in English, and I work in an international team, so languages and cultural awareness is really, really important too. So I think, yes, definitely science and maths matches really well with engineering, but it's certainly not the only thing. And if you're not top of the class in science and maths, you can still be a really, really successful engineer or scientist.
Great, thank you, Sarah. And could we have another question from Mrs. Skidmore from South Charnwood High School, please?
Okay, so this is a question for Katie. Who supported or guided you when you decided to be an engineer?
So I'm in the group. I'm not an engineer, albeit I'm in engineering, leading a large team. And when I joined my current company 10 years ago, I formed like a really strong professional bond with the head of HR, and she's helped guide my career throughout. And in terms of like a role model and mentor, she's definitely challenged me and pushed boundaries. As just because you're not an engineer or working in, you know, one of the largest engineering consultancies doesn't mean that you can't progress. You know, and as the other girls have touched on, you know, being a woman, you know, there is still that split, albeit it's improving. But I echo what Amber said around it's probably the age that's been the biggest element of and for me it's how can some of the questions I've had is how can you lead an engineering team when you're not an engineer, and she's, you know, younger than 80% of the team. So I've had those struggles, and I've always just made sure that I've talked to mentors, different people that are engineering professionals or outside, as I said, the head of HR, to get their opinion and think how I can best navigate the situation. And that's always helped me. And working in engineering, and I've worked in retail and, you know, as I said, in the sports industry as well. It's the best industry that I've been in, for everybody pulls together and everybody wants to help one another. And any problem you face, you know, you can always ask for help, which I know is daunting. And especially as you're young, coming up and wanting to ask for help. And as Rebecca touched on, all of us think we know everything or want to know everything, but you know, we don't, and we never can. And it's a learning process, and just, you know, reaching out to people, forming those bonds, and anybody will support if needs be.
Thank you, Katie. That's really interesting to hear. I've got another question from the Lancaster Academy. Put this question to Amber, please. It's with regard to how many hours you spend at work each day, and how do you manage that with regard to your family life?
So I guess of late it's been a little bit different because everyone's working from home. But I have two really young kids. They're 3 and 1. So what I try to do is, on a couple of days a week, I only work a half day my core hours, and then I make the rest of my hours up in the evenings. And that flexibility with work really helps me manage my work and family life. So that's great. And a lot of companies within the industry now are introducing or already have in place flexible working. So my core hours, I do 7.4 hours a day, but I can work them and flex them however I need to in order to suit me and my family and my life. So it's really great, and it's one of the things that I really love about where I work in Siemens Energy, is that I'm given the support to just manage my time as I need to, as long as I get my job done.
Thank you, Amber. That's really interesting. I know Sarah too has a very flexible work life because she's got a young family as well. That's really important. Could we have another question, please, from the Soar Valley College students, Mrs. O'Flynn?
Hi, Rebecca. How old were you when you knew what you wanted to do for a career?
I was probably about 8 years old when I knew I wanted to go into engineering. So I started racing karts with my older brother raced karts forever. So it was kind of like the motorsport link put me into engineering. But to be honest, I still don't 100% know where I want to end up. So yeah, the karting got me into engineering, got me studying engineering, got me into university. Then I did a placement year. So I did a 5-year degree similar to Hannah, 4-year undergrad and a master's. But my 3rd year of my undergrad was a placement year with BMW. So I kind of got to see what I did and didn't want to do. So that helped when I graduated and got a real job. But to be honest, like I said, I still don't 100% know where I want to end up. And I actually think the beauty of engineering is you can keep moving and you can change things up and do something different. So I think I'll just keep changing and just go to what I find interesting at the time.
Okay, thank you very much, Rebecca. Could we have another question from the Jameah Academy students? Miss Isaac, please.
We've got a question here for Hannah. The question is, at what part of your career did you become passionate about engineering?
So I feel like I was passionate before about engineering before I sort of got into my career, and the real sort of drive was when I was still at school, and this this lady from it wasn't an engineering company, but it was a recruitment company, came in to do a careers lunch, and essentially just asked me straight out, have you ever considered a career in engineering? And I hadn't. But she was really great, and she found me a summer placement on the Fourth Rail Bridge, which is one of the most sort of iconic bridges in the world. And it was based on site. I was walking along the bridge, up and down. It was in the elevators there, and it was honestly fantastic to see or sort of be a part of a project on that scale. It was with Balfour Beatty, who were painting the bridge, which doesn't sound like much, but it's a huge job. And just sort of coming away from that, I think it just really inspired me to sort of take on a career in engineering where I would physically be able to see how what I was doing, my day-to-day job, was able to create a positive impact on society around me, make things easier for the public, sort of for example, in highways, make your journeys day to day simpler and more safe. And I really think before I was really passionate about it before I got into my career, but then since I started, it's just continued to grow. So I can't really imagine not being an engineer anymore now I've got to that stage.
Thank you, Hannah. I have a question from the Orchard Mead Academy students. If I can perhaps put this one to Sarah. Do you think being an engineer, you can influence some of the world's problems, some of the world's greatest problems that we have, things like climate change and other sustainability issues?
Yeah, so I mean, there's so much opportunity to do it, and you've just heard, from others, some of the cool projects that they have worked on. So I think there's this huge, essentially engineering is just problem solving. So if there's a problem, then you need people with engineering skills to solve it. So I think the potential for impact is huge. In my personal career, it's a bit strange because I used to work in the safety division. So you've probably seen with COVID, obviously we're all wearing face coverings, but healthcare professionals are also wearing disposable respirators and masks. And so I got to see a few when that first hit. Obviously it's not a good thing, but there are some positives to come out of it. And one of the things that for me personally was I got to see some instructions that I wrote probably 10 years ago, publicized and actually helping people to fit those masks better. So to me that was really good because it was like it's educational and it's a genuine impact that is keeping people safe. And I'm sure the others have got similar stories. I think you can end up in so many different areas, and if you've got an area of interest, like at the moment I'm a part of a sustainability group, which is just a personal interest, but I get to work on that in my career as well. So that's around sustainable adhesives, which I think are really important for going forward. So yeah, I should also add at 3M we do have something really special, which is called the 15% culture. So we get to spend, all of us in 3M, we get to spend up to 15% of our time working on projects that are totally outside of our job description. So that is an amazing freedom because it means that not only do we routinely work on things as part of our job that are impactful, but also we get to look at stuff that's just of personal interest. So for example, when I was on maternity leave, I submitted an invention idea which was based around reusable nappies because it's something that's interesting to me and I had that experience at the time. So I think it's absolutely fantastic. We're not the only company to have that kind of thing, but there is just huge potential to make an impact, to make a difference.
Thank you, Sarah. And could we ask Mrs. Skidmore to put forward a question on behalf of her students?
What did your teachers think when you said that you wanted to work in engineering?
So that's a great question. So I went to an all-girls school, and really, although it was a very sort of forward-thinking school as well, and they really did sort of encourage more of the girls at school to enter STEM careers. We had a lot of careers lunches, a lot of guest speakers, sort of trying to encourage that. And I got given a lot of support, and my teachers, for example, the Scottish school system is a bit different, but I guess the equivalent in England with the GCSEs, I hadn't taken physics, which was a requirement for me to go to my university of choice. And so I had to take a crash physics course in my sixth form year. And it was sort of rarely done, but because I really, really wanted to go study engineering, so the teachers made it happen, made it work, and I was able to then get the grade that I needed to go and study at Aberdeen University. So a lot of positive encouragement, a lot of support for it, and I'd encourage anyone to reach out to their teachers if they're unsure about engineering and to sort of find out a bit more about that sort of route.
Thank you, Hannah. So we've just got a little bit more time left for another couple of questions. So Miss Isaac, could you put forward another question from your students, please?
Hi, I just wanted to put this question to any of the rising stars. It would be just based on what we've spoken about today. What would you say to encourage some of our pupils here to get into any STEM?
Yeah, I can answer. So I think that we've already talked a little bit about doing some research. Finding role models is really important. There is local STEM organisations in every single region that schools should be able to link you up with. They have a massive list of people in STEM careers that you can probably speak to, who can give you some advice and just, tell you about their route. But like we've already said, everyone is individual. You don't have to follow exactly what someone else has done. But my advice would be to look at your skill set, look at what you really enjoy, because if you're passionate and enjoy something, that's going to take you on to have a really good career. So look at your skill set and then decide what you want to do based upon that. And there's so many different careers in STEM. I mean, I'm not even aware of every single job because there's just that many. So certainly don't just limit yourself to what you see and know around you. Do a lot of research and then look for role models. And yeah, that's the best advice.
Thank you very much, Amber. I think that's really good advice for all the students listening in today. So unfortunately, that's all we've got time for in terms of questions. So to close, I'd just like to thank the students and teachers who've joined us today. I do hope it's been a valuable event, perhaps given you some deeper insight into the types of careers, opportunities that you could take up if you study science and STEM subjects. Also, maybe it's changed your perceptions of who engineers are and what they do in their daily life, and possibly sparked an interest in a career that you'd not considered before. I'd also like to thank, on behalf of 3M, the Leicestershire Education Business Company. They kindly helped to promote this event to schools on behalf of 3M. If anybody's got any additional burning questions that we've not covered today, if the teachers want to email me, I'm sure our rising stars will be happy to respond by email, and I can pop those questions, the answers to your questions, back to you. We wish you all the best with your future studies, and also in finding a rewarding career that really inspires you. And finally, huge thanks to our rising stars who've kindly given up their time this morning, and I'm sure you have really busy schedules. And it's been fantastic to hear your personal insight. So thank you very much. And your responses hopefully will help to develop a hugely informative careers resource, and we'll share this with the other schools that couldn't join us today. So on behalf of 3M, we wish everybody all the best and enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you.